Good evening, everyone. I am Zaylin Yates, the Associate Production Manager and Executive Administrative Assistant for the Peter London Global Dance Company. And I just want to say thank you for joining us this evening for another virtual event within our Happy Hour series. And of course, before we get started, I always just want to make sure I thank our sponsors, because without them, none of this would be possible. So a big thank you to the Avram Corporation, Funding Arts Network, Coral Gables Department of Cultural Affairs, the Knight Foundation, City of Miami Beach Arts and Culture, and Florida Department of State Division of Cultural Affairs. And then lastly, but certainly not least, the PLGDC Board of Directors. So we are thrilled to celebrate National Caribbean Heritage Month with both you and each of our panelists, which are all from different areas of the Caribbean. And so I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us, and I will introduce them all individually shortly. I also want to thank our administrative assistant, Ms. Jasmine Jackson, who will be assisting behind the scenes and playing all of the videos you will see in this program. Now, before we jump into our show, we first just want to hear some lovely words from our founding artistic director, Mr. Peter Bido London.
Thank you very much, Zaylin, for that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank each of the panelists for agreeing to join us and to share their stories about their work in the community here in Miami and South Florida, their collaborations, their partnerships, and how they help develop the relationships between Caribbean American people and African Americans and people throughout the diaspora, and make our community, our multicultural community, multi-ethnic community here in South Florida a better place to live. It's needed, as we've seen in the recent past, and now this sort of a relationship and collaboration and partnership is needed more than ever. And I can tell you from working with each and every one of them that the contributions they make are invaluable and more needed now than ever in the state of affairs that we're in this country and around the world. So thank you very much for agreeing to come and share your story with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. London, for those words. Now, in today's program, it is exactly what the title states: a celebration of Caribbean, African-American, diasporan community partnerships and collaborations. And with that, we just want to highlight, as Mr. London also mentioned, and showcase the positive impacts of each of our panelists. And this evening, you will hear each of our panelists speak a little bit about where they're from, their career, their impact through various community events or organizations, and how those things showcase them or their country and also impact the diaspora. So we will hear specifically from our moderator, Global News Editor with POLITICO, Mr. John Yearwood from Trinidad and Tobago, Philanthropist, Ms. Yvette Belle from Trinidad and Tobago, and also radio host, Mr. Cleve Osborne and Ms. Gillian Smart from Trinidad and Tobago. Next, we'll hear from painter and photorealist, Mr. Michael Elliott from Jamaica, principal dancer with Garth Fagan Dance Company, Mr. Vitolio Jeune from Haiti, and composer and founding artistic director of the Ballet and Dance Orchestra, Mr. Ezra Haugabrooks, a descendant of Jamaican heritage. And lastly, choreographer, dancer, and educator, Mr. Terrence Pride, who is not from the Caribbean, but is at heart. So I'm sure you all are kind of tired of hearing me speak. So at this time, I want to give the program over to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Yearwood.
Thank you very much, Zaylin, and to Peter London for inviting me to participate in this important event. I moved to the United States at the age of 13, and today I'm grateful beyond measure for that move. That's a far cry from how I felt shortly after moving to Connecticut with my mom and one of my brothers. For a time, I was consumed with homesickness. I missed everything about Trinidad: my friends, the sounds, the food, the people. Now, not long after I moved to the United States, I felt homesick. And that homesickness that I encountered intensified with the first snowfall. But I trod through it. High school in Hartford, then college at the University of Connecticut. And after UConn, I drove from Connecticut to Oklahoma for my first job with the Associated Press. From Oklahoma, it was on to Dallas, where I spent a combined 26 years in journalism. That experience included reporting from far-flung places around the world, such as Umtata, South Africa, Bangalore, India, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and so many more. I later moved to Fort Worth and worked for the Star-Telegram as an editor, and later the Miami Herald as its world editor. And a year and a half ago, I joined POLITICO, the country's preeminent political news site. I currently serve as POLITICO's global news editor. Whether in Dallas or here in Miami or Washington, I always took a deep interest in what I can do to advance my community, whether the journalism community, African American, Caribbean, or African community. I've held several local and national elected positions with the National Association of Black Journalists, the largest journalist organization of color in the world. 2 years ago, as honorary convention chairman, I helped to attract a record 4,100 journalists to Miami. In addition to journalism, I've helped to lead a local effort to get one of Haiti's preeminent modern dance companies back on its feet after Haiti's devastating earthquake a decade ago. Which brings me to my role with the Peter London Dance Company. I'm honored to be able to do what I can do to help Peter and the company as much as I can. Dance is a universal language, and I cannot think of a better way to bring different communities together than through dance. Peter has done a magnificent job here in South Florida, and I'm proud of the small part that I've played in helping this extraordinary company succeed. In the interest of time, I'll stop here, but before I move on, I'd like to say that my story is the immigrant story. Indeed, it's also the American story. Here in this great land of opportunity, if you work hard, you can and will succeed. My dad always told me that the harder I work, the luckier I will become. Well, I have been lucky beyond measure. Now, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Yvette Belle. Yvette?
Hello, everyone out there. Well, as John said, my name is Yvette Belle. I was born in Rio Claro, a rural district in the county of Nariva-Mayaro, located in the Twin Islands of Trinidad and Tobago. I migrated to New York City in December of 1976 and came to South Florida in May of 1984. Since 1993, I have been a resident in the city of Lauderdale. I am a licensed retired hospital pharmacist, and in these pandemic times, my healthcare background has been proven to be clinically useful in dispensing COVID-19 vaccine advice to family and friends. But my Caribbean and African heritage and a passionate sense for community incited the birth of Trinidad and Tobago IBC Incorporated, a non-profit charitable organization existing since July 2003. Trinidad and Tobago IBC Incorporated, partnering with others here in South Florida and in the Caribbean, has donated to the less fortunate in the form of scholarships, hurricane relief, and other charitable givings. An annual Trinidad and Tobago Independence celebration with recognition of our peers in varied fields of endeavor was always scheduled and executed, except during this pandemic. Peter London Global Dance Company, our esteemed host for this evening event, has been an integral part in our African and Caribbean community here in South Florida. The mission and vision of the company, the vibrancy, the energy, and the character of the dancers reflect the makeup and the vibe in our community. Professionalism, as well as growth and development of our youth, is paramount. Therefore, support for this organization from community stakeholders is necessary for the sustainability of Peter London Global Dance Company. Just a bit of history. Caribbean American Heritage Month was adopted in the US House of Representatives in June of 2005. It was proclaimed by the US Congress in June 2006 and signed by President George W. Bush. Since then, the June celebrations have intensified. I am honored, really honored, to be part of this panel. The diverse forms of expression from each panelist will indicate the substance and the rich background our community possesses and demonstrate. But since there's more work and activism to be done, the community is thriving with a sense of inadequacy. Therefore, forums of this kind will continue to provide necessary boosters. To our viewers and participants worldwide, please take the opportunity to read about and engage with Peter London Global Dance Company and other Caribbean entities involved here in South Florida. To our elders and ancestors, we promise to represent and uphold all aspects of our culture as we simultaneously evolve and aspire to the highest pinnacle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Belle. Yvette, I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, before we lose you, one question. I know that here in South Florida, your event in celebration of Trinidad independence is actually the place to be, every year. What was it like in the last year or so that you haven't been able to hold it because of COVID? And will you be holding it this year? And how have you been able to help the organizations in Trinidad and elsewhere that you normally do because you weren't able to do your event last year?
Good question. For the past 2020, 2021, we were not able to host the Trinidad and Tobago Independence Ball. And of course, it's due to the pandemic. And funding, without anything happening in our community, funding will always be a problem. But 2022, August 20th, 2022, is the date for the next Independence Ball. That's next year, when Trinidad and Tobago will celebrate 60 years of our anniversary of independence. So at least I wanted to throw that out there. But as far as the organization, we have been doing small events like food sales between ourselves, trying to keep the pot boiling. But we do hope that from now on, with the changes that's coming on with the vaccines and other folks out there taking the vaccines, that we will be able to step forth and do much better and produce the Independence Ball next year.
Perfect. Sounds great, Yvette, and I hope to see you there. I'd like now to introduce Mr. Cleve Osborne. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure and an honor to be included on this panel. I'd like to thank Peter and the Peter London Global Dance Company for the invitation. I would like to begin by titling my presentation, I am here because they were there, meaning that I'm here because my mother was recruited to travel to move to the United States to work as a domestic. So, and I say that in order to tie in, we just went past Juneteenth, the whole awareness that we are getting about Black history, and to tie that in this conversation. Based on the fact that I grew up in the oil fields of Hyderabad, Trinidad and Tobago, born and grew up and educated there, I lived among foreigners and people who came into the country, into the oil fields to work, expats came in to work. So I had different experiences with foreigners and the locals. So when my mother was recruited, I came up in 1970, went to Philadelphia, and that's where I attended St. Joseph's College. And I appreciate her being recruited to come to the United States because it gave us an opportunity, it gave me an opportunity to come to the United States, go to university, study, and then move on with my life and my career. And I truly appreciate the fact that she was appreciated. And it gave me an opportunity to transplant my family, which was, you know, my future family, to the United States of America. And so we came to seek a better life. My sister traveled to London and she became a nurse. She studied and she still lives there. Having moved to the United States some 41 years ago, I've spent most of my life here rather than in Trinidad and Tobago. I worked as in business management in Philadelphia for a company out in New York. And then I was transferred to Miami. And when I look back at my life, things that happened shaped my life because I tried to learn from my experiences. Eventually I left the business that I was transferred to become, and again, I had my experiences there and went into teaching. And I taught at the Miami-Dade County Public School system, teaching television, film production, broadcasting, journalism, and all the related skills to that field. So I was grateful that I had the opportunity to groom young people, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Anglo Americans, all kids. So I had an opportunity to groom, to teach, to mentor, to have conversations with, and I've had a wide experience because I taught in several schools in the Miami-Dade County Public School system. I was in the system and I was used and I was moved to different schools to start magnet television programs. So I was able to go out into the lower income communities, recruit kids and bring them into the magnet programs. And so that's where I developed my focus, my goal on trying to help young people, trying to groom young people, trying to shape their lives, you know, talking to them. And then I also have the experience of being involved in the community. I hosted radio programs on a wide variety of Caribbean radio stations, different types of programs, talk shows, music shows, gospel shows, but I did a various type of programs. And I enjoyed doing radio programs. And so I was asked to cover for many people. And so I saw it as an opportunity to learn and to grow and to experience different audiences and different type of experiences that I could share with younger people. So added to making a contribution to the public school system, I also was involved in various groups as the Trinidad and Tobago Independence Ball Committee. I was also involved with the UniFest organization led by Mayor Hazel Rogers in Broward County. And Peter London Global Dance Company, we were invited to see, meaning the members of the Trinidad and Tobago Independence Ball Committee, were invited to see Peter London perform in Little Haiti. And we all attended, and I was so proud to see a Trinidadian doing this quality work because I've never seen it before. I followed my daughter, my second daughter. She danced and I went with her. I was the chauffeur, the dance dad, I did that. But when I saw what Peter London Global Dance Company gave to the community, I was so proud that I volunteered. I don't know if I regretted volunteering. I don't think I regretted. That was just a joke. I enjoyed working with Peter London Global Dance Company. And the only reason I left, because I knew I was going to retire and I was going to move away somewhat from Miami. And that's the only reason that I leave organizations, because I have something else planned. I'm doing something else. I move to something else. And so I want to encourage those who are viewing this program right now that try and reach out to the Peter London Global Dance Company, connect with them on the website and give your help, because Peter has set up a platform where young people can learn, they can create, they have become choreographers, and they have an opportunity to come back to Miami and demonstrate what they have learned over the years. So I was happy to be involved with Peter London Global Dance Company, TTIBC, UniFest, and all these different organizations, other social organizations where I played soccer with them and that type of thing. I want to say the main reason that I became involved in these organizations was to share knowledge and experience with young people, because I believe they are our future. Having retired since 2012, I'm involved in giving back. So right now, when I move from one thing, I move to something else and I stay involved. So right now I'm involved in giving back to my alma mater, Fyzabad Intermediate EC School in Trinidad, in Fyzabad, Trinidad and Tobago. And so I am still giving, but I'm trying not to leave the house as much as possible. And the pandemic gave me an opportunity to stay at home and use my skills still, because I'm very busy. And I just realized today that I stay on the phone, on my headphones, talking to different people, listening, doing things for them, and my battery runs dead. After around 4 o'clock, I go and charge my battery. So I don't know if it's an old phone or if I need a new phone. But anyway, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Peter London Global Dance Company. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I try to fit everything in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Cleve. And I certainly, it seems like you are up for a new phone. But I wanted to ask you, as a teacher, I want to see if we can sort of pull together your teaching and this love for dance, and how would you encourage more young people to become interested in dance?
I taught in the Magnet program, which is an arts program in the Dade County school system. So I know the value of an arts program. And I also, like I mentioned, encourage my daughters. Well, she wanted to be in dance. I forced her to be in photography, took her to school with me. She was in photography. I forced her to be in photography. And then when she hit high school, she said, Dad, listen, I want to be in dance. So for a number of years, she danced. I took her to dance performances. And then she went off to college and she danced. She's now doing that photography that she didn't want to do. And up to Father's Day, she thanked me for encouraging, because she has a side business where she does photography. And it is important to learn a skill. That's the first thing. It is important to learn a marketable skill. And I think any art program not only gives you a skill, but it saves young people. It prevents young people from getting into trouble and doing things that they're not supposed to do, you know, and so it directs young people and it gives them an opportunity to not only gain the academics, but it gives them an opportunity to develop skills and to really focus and shape their lives for the future. And so I believe in the art programs and the Art Magnet programs.
Thank you very much, Cleve. Now I'll move on to Gillian Smart. Gillian?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want to say, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Yearwood, for hosting this panel. And thank you so much, Peter, for really bringing this forward to the community. I am honored to be in the company of giants. My name is Gillian Smart, and I'm going to say that a second time. I am Gillian Smart. And for my students, I tell them I was born smart. I use that line all the time. I was born on #1 hillside, Lower Hillside in San Fernando, Trinidad, right across the street from the Union Building, in the center, in the heart of Trinidad. If you ever hear about Black Stalin talk about Skiffer Bunch and Coffee Street, I was right around the corner down the hill. That's where I was born. And yes, I was born in October, which means I was more than likely a carnival baby. Culture is embedded in my DNA. At the age about 2, we moved from Lower Hillside to Coquet Village. And I attended, my first school that I attended was a nursery school right in the back of my house. It was owned and operated by the former Prime Minister's mother, Patrick Manning's mom. And I remember Patrick Manning coming home from England because he studied in England, and this tall young man standing on the gallery as we were walking out, the little kids walking out and seeing him there. Mom was always proud of him. My second teacher was also Mrs. Manning, Patrick's aunt. So I'm a San Fernando girl. I attended St. Gabriel Girls RC School over there by Harris Promenade. And my first experience with music, art, and dance was at the school. I was a precocious young girl. I loved to dance. I love music. I love expression. And when my family came to town, when I heard my aunts and uncles were coming, I would set up a whole I would put on a show. I was like, okay, we had a turntable and Daddy would give me the records. I would choose the records and I would put on a production for them. And everybody called me Shindig. That was my nickname back then, back in the 60s, right? And I was really into dance. At St. Gabriel's, I joined the dance team and they did a phenomenal production of Sleeping Beauty at the Naprima Bowl. A young choreographer at the time, Eric Butler, saw me and invited me to join his dance company. I stayed with Eric Butler Dance Company for maybe about a year or 2, and then we moved to the States in 1975. And I did not get the opportunity to join the dance company, which I wanted to, which was Harlem Dance Theater. And that's because I lived in Queens. And for me to go to the Dance Theater of Harlem, which was in Harlem, I would have to take 2 trains and a bus, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was the youngest of the siblings, and I didn't have anybody who could transport me from Queens to Harlem. So I ended up using my energies and my talents and putting them in other areas, but I always loved the arts. I moved to Florida, and I moved to Florida about 23 years ago. And in moving to Florida, I had to seek out activities because, you know, I can't keep still. I have this ants in my pants, and I have to dance, and I have to be involved in the community. And which my parents, George and Lyra Smart, they were conscious of us being involved in some form, in the community in some form, some level. And I sought out different groups here. And I made my way to Mr. Cleve Osborne through Carnival and choreography and dance. I saw Cleve at the Kiddies Carnival in Las Olas for the first time on stage. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do what he's doing. He was emceeing at the time. And I said, I have to do it. And somehow the planets aligned, the universe aligned, and Cleve and I made a connection. I saw him in the airport going to Trinidad one year, and I invited him to my family's home in Diego Martin. And I told him about a venture I was going into, which was television productions here. We were going to produce some Caribbean programming for Comcast here in West Palm Beach. When he came back, he returned. I showed him the studio, and he saw something in me and said, I want you to join us on the Caribbean Rhythms radio show 3 at 3 with Eddie and Cleve. So I've been on that show for the past 6 years. And I have to say, radio and media is part of me. I mean, I would do this all day, every day, without the bat of an eye. I enjoy thoroughly what I do. And Cleve also introduced me to the Trinidad and Tobago Independence Ball Committee, where I got my first peek at the Peter London Global Dance Company. I don't know if you guys noticed while everyone else was speaking, I was kind of looking down because I'm sort of like a media geek. You know, if something's going on, I have to tell the world. So I was here sending out blasts on my Facebook. And I remember that first time I saw Peter, I had to go live. I had to go live on Facebook because this thing was just, it was just so amazing. He had Indian, he had Chinese, he had African performances all enveloped in one performance. And it was just so beautiful, dancing to one of our national songs. Oh my gosh, that was it for me. That was it for me. And I have been totally enthralled in Peter's production, in the Global Dance Company's production. Every opportunity I get, I stand on the hills, on the Facebook hills and Instagram hills, and I share. You have to see these performances. It is art. It enriches our lives. And I'm just so grateful for Cleve and Peter and for Miss Yvette Belle for what they do in the Trinidad and Tobago community. Because unlike Jamaica, unlike Haiti, Trinidadians sort of keep their culture a little secret. It's like we almost don't want to tell everybody. I want to be bold like the Jamaicans. I want to be like Bookman. I want to be like Toussaint Louverture. Call me the Caribbean Oprah. And I will sound off from every radio station, Super Jams Radio, Caribbean Rhythms Radio, Cane Radio. I would sound out what great culture we have here. I live by 2 mantras. The first is success is determined by how we respond to difficult situations. And the second is things in life are not important. What's important are the spiritual relationships we foster as we travel through time and space. Thank you so much for this platform, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gillian. two things that I wanted to ask you. Actually, there are so many questions I want to ask you from what you said, but I'll select just one. But an observation before my question, when you mentioned that you are a carnival baby, I saw my friend Yvette, who I've seen on the streets on Carnival Tuesday, almost couldn't control herself. So clearly she got that really good. I wanted to ask you, though, about when you talked about Trinidadians often keep their culture close to themselves. Why do you think that's so? Why aren't Trinidadians more expressive, if you will, of our culture outside of Trinidad?
So, you know, this week we had a major event. We had a major media event with Michael B. Jordan wanting to trademark the name Juve. And I think when it pertains to Carnival and anything around Carnival, you know, Canboulay, Juve, or Pretty Mass, whatever you want to call it, Old Mass, we are proud of that. But I don't feel like we show off, or we don't want to offend others, I think, in being braggadocious and boastful about how rich our culture is. But this week it showed out because we stood out and we said, no, you can't take this. This is not yours. This is we thing. Is our thing. We will share it with you, but you can't keep it. So this week was the first time that I saw the boldness of the Trinidadian community saying, we're not ashamed to say this is ours. It is ours. We'll stand on the hilltops. But because we're always afraid, you know, that saying, don't make yourself too big because you don't want people to feel bad in your company. We have to learn to not be afraid of being who we are, to allow ourselves to unfold in front of people, and they will laud us for that. I think people respect us more when we stand on the hilltops and say, this is who I am.
Thank you very much, Gillian. Now I'll move to Mr. Michael Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Yearwood, for that introduction. Thank you to the Peter London Dance Company for this and for having me on the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. My name is Michael Elliott. I'm a visual artist from Jamaica. I live and work in Jamaica. And I've been doing my craft in photorealism as a painter, and I've been doing photography as well. My work spans in different themes. I'm a conceptual painter, so I'll do socio-political themes in my work, like race, politics, environment, migration, class, slavery, all the hard-hitting stuff, because I think that I think that art of any kind, not just painting, can be used as a platform to deliver strong messages and conversations that can provoke change. I've shown extensively in Jamaica over the years since leaving Edamandi College of the Visual and Performing Arts in Jamaica. I've been in exhibitions here and also abroad in Europe and the United States. I've invested time in community workshops and murals also for the development of youth and communities, and also I've engaged in diasporal activities in the Caribbean, which is important in not only knowing more about my identity and, you know, where we as a people and people of color as we engage with each other, but it also builds each other. Now you're probably wondering how my connection with Miami has come about. In 2017, I met Rosie Gordon-Wallace of the Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator, DVCAI, and through a mutual friend, and we got talking, and she invited me to be a part of a international cultural exchange in Jamaica in 2017, and which I engaged with. And then from that, it springboarded that in 2018, I was invited to be the artist in residence in Miami, Florida, where I stayed there in the summer for a month and engaged with the community. And this is also where I also started my famous Windrush series, which I'm still continuing to date. There's a piece right behind me right here as I have an as a example. And we've had other different engagements, especially intersectionality diaspora art from the Creole City, which was a mega show, a touring show in the United States that I was a part of in the past 2 years. It has been traveling from DC, it started, then it went to North Carolina, and then it ended in Miami. Now, my connection with Peter is that when I went to my residency in Miami in 2018, I met him at this event where it was an awards ceremony, and we started a conversation, and then I've had him as a contact ever since. But in 2020, just before the pandemic, I was in Miami, and we had a conversation over a very nice Trinidadian meal, I must add. And we got talking about the possibility of merging fine art with dance. And he told me more about his dance company, which I was very fascinated about, and all that he was doing for persons of color in the Miami area, and extended beyond that. And I felt it's something that I really wanted to be a part of. So fast forward later that year, of course, everything has been virtual by this point. There's a production called Woman Roses Water, and he pitched to me that I could do several backdrops, which would be projected behind the dancers. Now, I'm not a person who can dance and go on stage and so on, and I take my hats off to all the dancers in the company, but I felt that, you know, I could use my art in joining you guys on the stage. And so I thought that this was a perfect opportunity to collaborate and have the arts merge together to create something in a symbiotic nature, and added with the music, of course. And it was a very wonderful, powerful production, especially in the parts that symbolized race and hardship and breaking through and coming out of a powerful person. And you know, all these themes really speak to what is happening today, and also the challenges that we have during COVID. And you know, an organization like Peter London's dance company, is global dance company, I should add, it's a very important organization because it empowers people through the arts, and especially persons in minority groups. And we can't take for granted the power of the collective of the arts, and it's a universal language, as was said before. And you know, I want to encourage you all to support this organization as much as possible. Send in your donations or however you can in cash or kind, and to support other activities in the greater Miami area. And you know, I think that we can really do this. We can really project forward even beyond this pandemic period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Michael, what's interesting about your connection to dance and your connection to Peter is that for a lot of people think that if they're interested in dance, then their entry point is through dance, being a dancer. You're not. You found an entry point that, as I would say, as someone who's seen the work that you did behind the dances, is as powerful as the dance. What advice would you give to people who are trying to say, how can they engage with companies like Peter London's, but they don't dance? Obviously, that there are other things that they can do. So what advice would you give to people who would like to be involved, but don't dance, if you will?
Advice I would give, as coming from a painter's perspective, what I would say is to the artist is to think to yourself, what makes your art similar to dance? Find a movement within yourself as the artist and engage with the dance company and engage ideas that can transcend the paintbrush or the clay and be on the stage. And I would, you know, I would say to persons to think beyond just a studio in isolation and think about more collaborations, because the sense of community is how we build each other. It can't be no man is an island. I know I live on an island, but I can't be an island at the same time. So, you know, it's a very powerful thing to do, and you know, as a building community, and yeah, yeah, that's basically what I would say.
Great, thank you very much, Michael. Now I'd like to introduce Vitolio.
sorte l'ouverture. In overthrowing me, you have cut only the trunk of tree of liberty. I will spring up again, for its roots are numerous and deep. Whatever defamation of character my enemies are spreading about me, I do not feel the need to justify myself toward them, while discretion obliges me to remain silent. My duty compels me to prevent them from doing any more harm. Brothers and friends, I am Toussaint Louverture. My name is perhaps known to you. I want liberty and equality to reign throughout Santo Domingue. I am working toward the end. Come and join me, brothers. Gouvertet Boulakai!
Thank you, Mr. Yearwood, for this introduction. I want to take some time to thank Peter London and Peter London Global Dance Company for this opportunity. I feel very honored to be part of this panel with such great Caribbean artists. Let me start by giving you a small background of where I'm from. I was born and raised in Haiti. I was raised predominantly by my grandmother. My first connection with the US was actually through my grandmother. She used to travel to Miami to visit her daughter, who is my aunt. And she would come back and she would tell me how it was like over there and how great it was. And there was so much opportunities. I wanted to go there because it sounded like a great place to be. I had no idea that dance actually was going to be the thing that would bring me to the US. So eventually my grandmother became ill. So my brother and I ended up in an orphanage where I actually had my very first connection with dance, and actually my second connection with the US, because majority of the volunteers that came to help at the orphanage were partly from the US, and some of them were actually from Europe. I used to get myself in a lot of trouble as a young boy. So I would look for ways to keep myself busy to stay out of trouble. So dance was one of those ways. So dance quickly became a defense mechanism to help channel my troubled youth, if you could say it that way. So my brother and I decided we were gonna ask for a dance teacher because we wanted to learn a little bit more about dance. So they finally got us a dance teacher, but I would not go to the dance classes. But since I used to spend a lot of time with my brother, he used to go all the time, which required me to be there as well. So I would go anyway because I was with him all the time. So, but while I was in the orphanage, I really did not take dance serious because it was almost like a gateway for me, a way to express myself if I didn't know the right word to use. Sometimes I would just, even nowadays, if I feel uncomfortable, if I'm happy or if I'm feeling some type of way, I just bust a move. I would just act silly because that's my way of expressing how I feel. So, but anyway, I finally left the orphanage. Actually, I didn't laugh. I got kicked out because I was such a troublemaker. And then I think I took one of their vehicle for a joyride and I crashed it. And it was a bad luck day for me because the director of the orphanage was right there when I crashed the car. So he was like, you've done enough trouble, so they kicked me out. So when I got kicked out, that's when I decided I wanted to really take dance serious. And then I decided to enroll at a dance school where I studied with Jeune, which founded Aiko Dance. But at the time, it was Jeune and Jean-René Delsoin. So they were both my two teachers. So I started dancing with them. And then they also had a dance company with the dance school. So I quickly became a member of the dance company. And I started traveling a lot with them. So I started really getting an experience what it was like to be a performer. You get to travel, you get to go abroad, you get to perform for an audience, and they get to cheer you up. So it was the best feeling ever. But the first time I actually get a chance to travel to the US, I was actually in transit to Japan because we had a performance in Japan. So I had a US visa, transit US visa for 1 month to stop in Miami, go to Japan, and then stop to Chicago and come back to Miami and so forth. But on the way back, I decided to spend 1 week in Miami. I said, my visa is for 1 month. If I spend a week, so that's not a trouble, as long as I don't overextend the visa expiration. But while I was there, I spent time with my aunt, I met my cousins, which I never met before. I spoke to them on the phone, but I finally got a chance to meet them. But I also get a chance to consume myself with as much art as I could. Everything that I couldn't get in Haiti, I consumed myself. I went to museums, galleries, and I decided one day to go to New Orleans School of the Arts because I wanted to see if I can take classes. But you can't just walk in New Orleans School of the Arts and take classes because it's conservatory. But I didn't know that then. So when I realized I couldn't take class, so I decided to stay and watch class anyway. So we were peeking through the windows, and it was a modern class. Peter London was teaching. My first interaction with Peter London, he was teaching a modern dance class to the high school students. And he saw Jean and I peeking through the glass. So he walked out, he says, can I help you guys? We were like, well, we were wondering if we can watch class. And he was kind enough. He invited us in. He said, yeah, come in and sat us down and let us watch class. And then we said we were from Haiti. From the moment, I don't know if it's because it's a Caribbean thing, you know, my wife's usually, she's surprised. If I go somewhere, I meet a Haitian person and all of a sudden we click as if we've known each other for years. And she doesn't understand how we do that. I'm like, it's something we can't explain. It just happened. So I had the same connection with Peter. And then I told them I wanted to come to school here. He said, well, you should apply. And then I decided to fill out an application the same day, not knowing what would come out of it. So, and then I went back to Haiti, and then I got a letter in the mail inviting me to an audition. So I was excited. I had lots of mileage because I used to travel with the dance company going to the Caribbean a lot. So I racked up a lot of miles. So I decided to use those miles, purchase a plane tickets, go to Miami and go to that audition. And I could see Peter's face smirking at me when it was time for me to do my solo, as if he was saying, yeah, you got this. You already know you're gonna make it, whatever. So I did the audition, did my solo, and then everything went well. And I was offered a scholarship the same day. And it's almost like everything went like, a big light came through me. I was like, finally, I'm gonna get to come here and study dance. Went back to Miami and started college. I think I met Peter in 2003 or 2004. And then I started New Orleans School of the Arts in 2005. I'm not gonna say it was the easiest 4 years. It was difficult. It was a lot to handle. I've traveled, but I've never left Haiti and moved to a different country. So it was a different experience. And my English wasn't perfect, you know, so it was a lot coming at me all at once. And Peter has always been so kind to me. That's one of the main reasons that we're still very close today and we still talk. Yesterday, we were on the phone for like, I would say a whole hour talking about art, talking about nonsense, talking about what it means to be Black Caribbean, Black in the Caribbean, and what it means to be Black in the US. And it was a very interesting conversation. And one thing that stays with me, and I always tell Peter, I'm very appreciative for it all the time. In college, when I was in college, as an international student, I was not allowed to work. So I was broke all the time. So I would come to class starving, and you cannot dance starving. You can, but eventually you run out of energy. And I remember one morning I was in the modern dance class and then I couldn't do it. I don't know if Peter could hear my stomach growling. And then he pulled me aside, he took me outside, he opened his bag, he gave me $20. He said, go buy something to eat and come back to class. So, and then I felt so special. And then I teared up because I'm like, how could he tell that I couldn't focus because I was hungry? So, you know, and I've always been appreciative of that. So, but anyway, long story short, I graduated in 2009, and then some of my classmates didn't want to, we're talking about some audition for this show called So That You Can Dance. I've never seen the show before, but I didn't want to go to ballet class. I was exhausted. It was senior year. I was ready to get out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to say I'm going to the audition so I don't have to go to class. And then one of my best friends was like, just go to the audition anyway. You got nothing to lose. But I went to audition, act the fool. And then I started making all the cuts. You make this cut, you make, next thing I know, I was in the top 20. And it's almost like it hit me because, you know, when you do something, because I really didn't want to make the show. I just went there for the fun of it. But while I was there, I also gave it my all, because that's what I'll always do. Either I wanted to do it or not. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do 100%. So I made the show. I made it all the way to top 14. And then after that, I decided to move to Rochester to join Garth Fagan Dance, because Garth Fagan Dance and I had already developed a relationship, because I've had a lead role in one of his dance called From Before that he did for New York School of the Arts. He wanted me to join his company. I wanted to graduate first before I did, and then I joined Garth Fagan. I've been with the company going on 13 years now. It has been an amazing experience. It's not easy work. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's the most difficult work you can do. It's very complicated, the way he uses music, the way he marinates that music with movement. It's beyond, you know. So it's been a great journey. And I think my work, I think I really work hard. You know, sometimes people see you at the present moment, but they don't know the route it took you to get to the present moment, how hard you had to swim, that you almost drowned a few times to get ashore, you know. So, and they just see the present moment, they don't realize the trajectory. So I think I've worked really hard to be where I am today in my career. And I hope perhaps my story provides some sort of inspiration to the world, and especially young Haitians in Haiti who aspire to do whatever they want to do in life. Either you want to dance, either you want to be an engineer, you want to be a musician. That's why I think representation matters. If you see a Caribbean, someone who's from where you're from, and they excel in what they do, and they look like you, they're from your country, it gives you some sort of motivation and hope to let you say, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it too. We're from the same place, you know? So, and I think December 2019 was my first collaboration with Peter London Global Dance Company. And it was an amazing experience, I must say, you know, where I really it was almost like a reunion, because most of the dancers part of this collaboration were from New York School of the Arts. Peter had something to do with who they are today in their career as dancers. and men in general. So Peter, I salute you for that. And I suggest you guys to please support Peter London Global Dance Company. Peter London Global Dance Company is a treasure to Miami, and I think to the rest of the world, because when you go see a performance, you see diversity. You know, you don't see just the usual stuff, because the usual stuff gets boring. You know, after you see it a couple of times, you're like, oh, what's next? I've seen this. But when you go see Peter London, you see variety. You see, it's very challenging. You question yourself. You know, you go home and you thank your spirits, whoever you pray to, you feel released, you know. So, and I think as artists, and personally for me as a dancer, I think how I contribute to my community is, for instance, if somebody comes to a performance and you see me perform, I try to do my best. So when you leave that theater and you feel like as if you are rejuvenated, you know, you feel like,
thank you, Vitolio.
You know, so thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vitolio. Really appreciate your story. In the interest of time, we are going to have to move on, and I know there will be some other questions asked later, so we'll come back to that a little bit later. I'd like to move on now to Ezra Haugabrooks.
Hi, my name is Ezra. I am a teacher at Morehouse, Clark and Spelman for the orchestras there. I'm a violist. I'm a composer. I'm a dad. I'm friends with Peter London, what he likes me, which is a lot of the time. And I founded the Ballet and Dance Orchestra. And I did so, and I mentioned these things because I think it's important to mention those who come before us, especially where they come from, especially in this world where Black men and women have been brutalized, not just physically, but mentally. My mom came from such a country. She was born in Jamaica. She left when she was like college age by herself with no money in her pocket, no warm clothes, flew to the States and went to Andrews University in Michigan. Like, I don't know if y'all know about Michigan. A lot of y'all Trinidadians on this call, it's really cold, and a reflection of the will necessary for one to say, I not only am a byproduct of a Jamaican system of oppression that comes from a colonial system of violence and hatred for Black people, but I can make it out of that. I'll make my own way. I'll make my way around the cold. I'll make my way around the flights and the what I'm sure she felt was a fear for her safety. She made it around all these things to accomplish one goal: development, personal growth, so she can contribute to her community. This type of reliance on one's culture, reliance on one's gift as a Black man or Black woman is inspirational. I draw upon it not only from my mother and seeing what she's had to go through to get where she is, but what it taught me about my people and the type of ways we can harness the abuses to us. We can retaliate. That's an easy one, and any method of retaliation. Or we can use our God-given gifts to retaliate, to release others from bondage. And that's what Peter has been doing in his little segment of the world, and globally as he's intent to do. And I think our connection, as magical as I think it was, I know one of Peter's friends and assistants met me at a gig in Minnesota, and he was like, hey, you should probably meet Ezra, and he told me I should meet Peter. How these things happen, I don't know. It's the magic of the Caribbean resourceful mind. It's an organism, right? So anyway, when Peter and I sat down and talked, we saw the same thing. If you're dancing to music and it's a recording in the room, why not dance to music with the people who recorded it in the room, live? Neglect the recording and go for the organicism that is music, that is art, that is entrepreneurial spirit, which Peter has a bunch of. But it's also the support of the community. And for those of you who understand the struggle of not only the Black creative and Black intellectual spirit, you must know that that spirit requires money, right? I mean, just think about it. My mom is from Jamaica. My pop is from Orlando or Coleman, Florida, where their labor, their mothers, their grandmothers before them, their labor was not compensated, right? That's what slavery in essence was. And it wasn't that long ago. So to say that money should not be brought up in these conversations where the mind is connecting with the body and with industry, which is what Peter is doing. And by the way, where are you? Michael brought up a good point of intersectionality, how you take your discipline and find a way to infuse it into another. This is the resourcefulness of the Caribbean mind. This is the resourcefulness of the Black mind. This is basically the resourcefulness of the human spirit, but under duress, because we need money. We need support. So anyway, hope I didn't bang too loud on the table there, but I was trying to get a point across. Thank you for letting me talk, and yeah, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Ezra. And again, we'll come back to you soon because of time. We want to move on, and we'll return with some questions a little bit later. But thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like to move now to Mr. Terrence Pride.
Our dance, our political stance, we rise up, yay! We rise up, yay!
Greetings and humble salutations, everybody. I'm so excited to be a part of this esteemed panel of individuals. And I want to thank Peter London for, again, choosing me to be a part of this and for everything that he has continued to give of himself. I am Terrence Pride, as John Yearwood said earlier. I'm a graduate of Florida A&M University in theater, performance, and dance. And I also received my master's degree in urban education from Florida International University with a graduate certificate in Africa and African diaspora studies. So part of my expertise, which brings me to this panel, is my advocacy for arts and education, as well as my professional acting and dance career, which includes the Peter London Global Dance Company. So Peter does more than choreograph routines for audiences. Although entertaining and soul-stirring, the Peter London Global Dance Company has taught me a great deal about Caribbean culture and the influence it's had throughout the diaspora. When we learn the native movement of the people of Trinidad and Tobago or Haiti, as well as other parts of the West Indies, we learn about the heritage. We learn about the culture, their spirituality, and where these dances originate from, which is important because as the people migrate, the movement migrates with them. And it evolves into many styles and genres that we come to know of in the US. However, the representation and the education about Caribbean culture and the influences that it has have escaped the context of our history books and are not taught in secondary education. And that's where I come in, and the influence that I've experienced comes in along with the effects of engaging in such rich and nourishing dance environment that the Peter London Global Dance Company provides. Through my training, I can begin to give agency to Caribbean heritage education because of pioneers such as pioneers of Caribbean descent, such as Peter London and Terry Springer, who is actually one of the guest choreographers this season, combined with the music of the West Indies, like Samite, whose music I've danced to numerous times. All these things begin to change the way that I view Caribbean culture, and thus gives agency to educating others on that culture and the contributions it's had on African Americans and the world at large. And so one of the most common stigmas that exist among people of the diaspora is the disconnection or misidentification of individuals of Afro-Caribbean descent and African Americans. Many who immigrate to the US from Caribbean islands often disassociate themselves with African American in the sense of class or education, languages, and other cultural identifiers that are not typical characteristics of African Americans. This disassociation is one of the reasons why I sought to begin my studies in Africa and African diaspora studies, to learn, to unlearn, and to teach the ways in which we, the members of the diaspora, are more alike than different. Through dance and music and costuming and engaging in different cultural experiences such as the Peter London Global Dance Company, I now have a keen sense of these similarities, as well as a host of viable resources to disseminate into my classrooms where I teach younger dancers and performers on how to be present in all of their Blackness, all of who they are and who they represent, whether it's Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, whoever, to show up in the fullness of who they are and what it means to bring their ancestors with them. And so earlier, Gillian Smart said, learning to be bold, right? And that's what I like to do in my classrooms as a teacher at Dillard High School of the Performing Arts. I too lean into what Mr. Osborne said earlier when he mentioned the value of magnet programs in arts and education. And through my experience and what the influence that the Peter London Global Dance Company has had on me, I'm able to again instill that in my performers and in my young students throughout that magnet program and the other programs that I also just so happen to be involved with throughout the city of Miami-Dade County, throughout Broward County, and hopefully soon sometime throughout Palm Beach County. And so I want to say that the excerpt that you all just saw of myself performing solos to Black men's stories, as well as Women Roses Water, the experience alone taught me a great deal about myself and what it means to be more than an artist, to actually be an example, to be a representation, to be a sense of identification for those who are searching for themselves in the media, as it's been said, in performance, because these are spaces that are typically white dominated, right? I'll say that. And so to be that little Black boy, or, that little, Hispanic boy, any boy of color who typically does not see themselves represented in spaces such as, the dance world, or, in painting, or in music, in orchestras, to be sitting in an audience and looking up on a stage, and you see yourself represented, and not just yourself represented, but you begin to get a sense of culture and heritage and who you are and where you come from. That is a difference, and that is the change that we're trying to make in the community. And I'm glad to be a part of the Peter London Global Dance Company, who have been so integral, as the lovely Miss Yvette Belle has said before, in orchestrating opportunities for young men to see themselves on that stage. And it's unfortunate that we could not show the clip in Black Men's Stories where Peter actually involved a lot of the youth in the community. And to share that space for me, not only with the youth, but with my brother Vitolio, who you heard from earlier. That was our first interaction of meeting each other. And just like he said, no, I'm not from the Caribbean, but just the bond and the energy that we shared backstage, oh my God, is as if the ancestors were sitting and communing with us, and each of us learning and growing together to a higher sense of an experience and reverence for what it is that we do, that goes beyond just moving our bodies across the stage. It's telling a story, the story of our ancestors, the story of our past, present, and future. And so to close, I will say Caribbean Heritage Month is about celebrating the contributions of those who journeyed from Africa to the Caribbean and influenced others who journeyed from there and shared what they learned with others. The focus is on paying homage to that influence and educating others on where it comes from, to teach them about the people, about the culture, and to build upon that for generations to come. Thank you all for having me a part of this esteemed panel again. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Terrence. And as we continue the celebration of Caribbean Heritage Month, I'd like to pass it to Mr. Peter London to continue the program. I think, Peter, you have to unmute.
Thank you, John, and thank you, members of the panel. Excellent conversation and sharing. And now we're going to celebrate some more work that we did. One of the dances program I created was Black Men's Stories, and that was specifically done because I was so traumatized by the increase of gun violence, and almost every night there's another Black man on the street, fall shot, mothers crying, children crying, so on and so forth. And people out on the streets marching and having to teach all day, choreograph all day. I was like, what can I contribute? So I decided to fly to Washington, D.C. and go to the African American Museum of Art and do some research there. I went to Martin Luther King statue. I communed with him, because that's what I do. I went to the Lincoln Memorial. I communed with him. I went to the Jefferson Memorial. I communed with him, talking, what is all this about? What kind of energies can you all bring into making a transition? And then came back with all that research from the museum and books, lots of books about all these different people you know, Toussaint Louverture, Frederick Douglass, everybody, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Mr. Baldwin, and then started to create a work and bring all these different artists from Miami who are working all over the world and artists here, and then got the children from Liberty City, work with them during the summer, and to have them work with all these great artists as mentors and so on and so forth, and create a dance that will help steer them into an area of self-discovery and have a positive movement forward, so they don't end up as somebody in the streets, you know, shot dead or knee on the neck, or all the craziness that was going on. And that's why I came up with Black Men Stories. Then the next year celebrate the anchors of our community, our women, our grandmothers and our aunts and our mothers and sisters, who keep they don't just prepare the food to keep our bellies full, they hold on to the stories of our history of the race. And without the history of the race, we can't move forward. So women are the anchors, as I know it, from the Yoruba tradition, Yemanja, the goddess of the ocean, Oshun, the goddess of the rivers, Oya, the goddess of the storms. These are the historic information that we brought with us from West Africa, from the Yoruba, and Urzali from the Dahomian people, which is celebrated in Haiti. And all those, the Loas, because Trinidad also had voodoo too. We had a priest come straight from Dahomey to Port of Spain in a place called Belmont. So all of that I bring in to celebrate our women and our sisters, and to give us courage and strength in these incredibly challenging times. And then to close it out with a celebration of Trinidad Carnival and a Calypso. So you're gonna see a little cross section of that now in the video.
Natives of this country, not a few of our fathers suffered and bled to purchase its independence. We ask only to share equal privileges. Peter Osborne, let us all unite and declare that we will. In the deep stillness of a summer Sabbath, stood all alone upon the lofty banks of that noble bay, and traced with saddened heart and tearful eye the countless number of sails moving off to the mighty ocean.
Without the knowledge of their past history, origin, or culture is like a tree without roots. If there is anybody in this land who thoroughly believes that the meek shall inherit the earth, they have not often let their presence be known. Broken-winged bird that cannot fly. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or does it
you just say, I want my brother! Somebody call my brother! This man, this grown man, crying for his brother, sobbing into the night. Oh! Comfort you tonight!
Welcome to the 10th anniversary of the Peter London Global Dance Company's premiere of Women, Roses, Water. PLGDC has a plethora of dancers and choreographers who go to work worldwide, but always come home to share their gifts. This company has proven for the last 10 years to be a vital part of the artistic fabric of Miami and the South Florida arts community. This company, without a doubt, deserves the level of support that will allow it to operate and drive professionally like any other major dance company in the United States. We want to say thank you for your continued support, and we welcome you to visit plgdc.org to stay connected and learn more about the rich history of the company.
To open doors to unfamiliar racial terrains flows from several generations of my family's resistance to second-class racial status dictated by Jim Crow laws and American tradition.
Thank you, and back to you, John and Zaylen.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. Brought back so many incredible memories. Well, we're almost at the end of our time together this evening. And that clip that you just showed, Peter, reminds me a little bit why it is not only so important for us to support the Peter London Global Dance Company, but also it reminds me why people come to your shows. I remember in one of your performances at the Adrian Arts Center, I ran into a community leader who was sitting out in the lobby, and I asked him, why isn't he inside? And he says, well, I cannot be inside because all the tickets are sold out, and really completely sold out. And I said, you know everybody, of course you can get in. He says, no, I don't. And shortly after that, Peter, I think you came by and I went in, and after the show, I saw the community leader in the lobby. I said, oh, I see you got a seat. He says, yes, but it was up in the lighting booth. It spoke so much, one, about how popular your shows are, and two, that how people really want to see your performances. So I'm wishing you, as we get past this period of pandemic, Peter, that you will continue not only to perform as you are at the Arts Center and at other facilities around South Florida, but also to continue to take your work national and international. And for everyone who's watching, there are a number of ways to get involved. Everything from being involved with the board of the Peter London Global Dance Company, or encouraging people you know to reach out to Peter, even to become dancers. And above all, if you coins to spare, I'm sure that Peter would be happy to relieve you of those as well. So Peter, I cannot say enough about the impact you have had on this community through this company. And I hope that as we move forward, that not only those of us in the box here appreciate, and those who are watching appreciate the work that you do, but this entire city would appreciate what a treasure that you are. And hopefully that as we get back, as I said, past this pandemic, more and more people in our community will be able to enjoy the great work, truly extraordinary work of the Peter London Global Dance Company. I'd now like to pass it back, or before I go, I'd be remiss if I say, just want to thank the panelists. I think everyone's story was just amazing. And I am as honored to be in all of your company as anything else this evening. So as I pass it back to Zaylen, I want to thank everyone. And of course, Peter, I want to thank you. Zaylen?
Thank you, Mr. Yearwood. And thank you to everyone listening. My cup is definitely full, personally, just hearing everybody's stories. So once again, thank you, Mr. Yearwood, for moderating, as well as to all of our panelists. Mr. Cleve Osborne, Ms. Gillian Smart, Mr. Michael Elliott, Mr. Terrence Pride, Ms. Yvette Belle, Mr. Vitolio Jeune, and of course, Mr. Ezra Haugabrooks. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and just your life stories. They were truly inspiring, truly motivating. Now, I want to give all of our attendees an opportunity to just ask a question. I know that we're a little past our scheduled time. So if you do have a question, then in the meantime, if you could just place it in the Q&A section or place it in the chat. And I know that you all are going to jump in there at once, but I'll go ahead and I will let you know of some upcoming events really quick that we have for the company that I'm sure you all will get really excited about. We just recently finished filming some new choreography on Miami Beach that we're going to be releasing in February 2022. So make sure you stay on the lookout for that. As well as you heard earlier, we began our International Cultural Exchange Program with Mr. Terry Springer from the Metamorphosis Dance Company of Trinidad and Tobago. And so he did via Zoom, choreographed on our company dancers, while Mr. London choreographed on his dancers over in Trinidad and Tobago. And so we're going to be premiering that program as well virtually in September of this year. So stay on the lookout for that. And of course, all these events will be on our website at plgdc.org. We'll also be hosting a little sneak peek of our December program that will premiere at the Arch Center this December, but the sneak peek is going to take place on September 19th of this year. And it's just going to be a little intimate mix and mingle. And I have some more details for you all to come. That'll also be on our website. And then some other quick performances in October. We'll be performing at the Miami Beach Band Shell. And we'll be doing another one of these virtual happy hours with a dance showcase attached to it in November as well. All leading up to our amazing production in December, which will be December 28th through the 31st. And that'll be the world premiere of Touch/Rain on Me. And we're gonna have a Caribbean themed opening night gala event featuring a Caribbean Christmas dinner with desserts, music, dancing, basically everything you could think of all wrapped in one night. So of course, as everybody mentioned, that takes your support. So we ask that you please visit our website, plgdc.org, where you can make a donation or just get involved with the company in some way, whether that's being a board member, a community advisory group member, a member of Friends of PLGDC, or just a volunteer. And of course, we always love our sponsors. So if you want to be one of those as well, we're open to that. So please just visit plgdc.org and you can find all that information there. So I want to quickly go over to the chat and see if anybody was able to put in a question here in the meantime. I know I answered Meredith's question earlier, so this program will be posted on our YouTube channel at the conclusion. So make sure you go and look out for that as well. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. So we don't, not seeing one at the moment. So I can just go ahead and just ask a question myself to the panel and we can close out with that if nothing else comes through.
Zaylen,
Yes, sir.
I think Gillian have a question.
Oh, did she? I'm sorry.
So I don't have a question. You know, I'm such a media junkie. I'm a social media junkie. I've been on Facebook the whole time. So I want to big up some of the people who are on the live. I have Kanika Wright from Haiti. She says, Yagovi, Leslie Mobile says, love the dance. Ulysses Easton, she says, this was wonderful, Mr. London. Thank you. Veron Julian says, excellent. And she just loves it. And also, Ulysses says, what a wonderful moderator you are, Mr. Yearwood. So I'm the mean social media junkie. I've been on this the whole time. And I've been sending out posts and sending out to people because, like I said, when I see something beautiful and wonderful, I just want to get on a hilltop and just tell it to the world. So these are all the people. And Vanessa Edwards also said, very impressed with the panel.
Well, thank you so much. We always love the support. And Gillian, thank you so much for being such a big spokesperson for the company as well. Oh, goodness. I love it. And as I mentioned earlier, you probably have heard me say it so many times that it definitely felt like a family reunion here this evening. I'm not from the Caribbean, but you all have made me feel a part of it through your stories and through your energy. So thank you. So I kind of just want to close out the night. And of course, any panelists can jump in and answer the question. But just for any of our attendees on here, I just want to ask, what has kind of helped you to get where you are? And what advice would you give to any of our attendees who may want to set off in a similar direction that you have chosen, just in your respective industry? Anybody want to tackle that? We have such a diverse panel. We got radio, we got painting, we got dancing.
Yvette, what did you want to say? I saw you raised your hand, Miss Belle.
Oh, I think she's on mute.
You're on mute.
I think she's unmute.
Unmute.
Let me see if I can help her out.
Yvette, there we go, you got it.
Yeah, I wanted to say to Zaylen, as long as you're a Black man, you're an African. Whether it's an African in Nigeria, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica. Okay, all right. As far as answering the question, I have always heard as a child, birds of a feather flock together. And that applies even today. I am an elder. When you want to accomplish something, you have to try and be with the people that you have come to realize are thinking and moving in the same direction. So like-mindedness, persistence, and identifying who you are will take you to that point.
Thank you. I love it. Words from, like you said, just a veteran yourself. So thank you for imparting those words of wisdom.
I like to add something to what Eva just said. I agree with Yvette. One of the things we have to do is not listen to the no's, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. Or also, certain people do that, but I don't. I can't. So we just have to follow our hearts, follow our dreams, and move forward and block out all the negatives.
Thank you, sir. And I think Vitolio also wanted to jump in here.
I would add consistency, and also don't give up. You know, keep working hard, and once you set your mind into something, just keep at it like a dog with a bone. You know, no matter how hard it gets, just keep working hard, and consistency is the key, I would say, for me.
Thank you, Vitolio.
You know, if I can pick up for a minute on something that Cleve said in terms of, you know, always being at it and doing a lot of different jobs. One thing that you also have to be willing to do is, you know, make friends with a lot of different people, not just the people where you want to be, but people you know, who are just starting out, people who are, you know, not even in the same profession, and you never know where people are going to be at any given time, and also what people are going through in their lives. And sometimes you would say something to someone that you wouldn't think would have an impact, but someone would tell you a couple of years later that that piece of advice and encouragement you gave to me is what I've been holding on to for these last several years. So, you know, always be humble, because sometimes they're the only thing that you can hold on to, you know, in these difficult and uncertain times.
Thank you, sir. And
just want to add something about, you know, John, talking about being humble. John is totally like that. You know, John does a lot of stuff for the company behind the scenes. We really wouldn't be here and or get to the level we get without John work behind the scenes. And I just want to say, before the pandemic, in celebrating our 10 years, John had made incredible arrangements for us to perform in Morocco. So, and we were already in the conversation with the people in Morocco, and they were going to come here. And we go to Morocco. Also, we had wonderful, incredible arrangement made by the president of the Asian Arts Center, Johan Zeitzman. I'm letting out some of the secrets. And we were already in talks to perform in South Africa, and with an orchestra there. And so there was a lot of plans, traveling to Martinique with an artist there, David Milome, and then to Trinidad and Tobago, of course, and Jamaica, as we had brought the company dance theater from Jamaica in 2017, and then we were supposed to go to Jamaica and perform. So there was a lot of things in the works. We were going to start our international touring, and then the pandemic hit. But you know, God is good and God is great all of the time, and all of the time, God is good and God is great. So when the right time comes, our bags are packed and we're ready to hit the road. But thank you, John, and everybody for your phenomenal contribution in sustaining our little oasis here in Miami.
And Mr. London, great words as always. I just laugh every time you talk. You're just so full of life and energy. So thank you for your presence.
You're welcome.
Mr. Elliott, I think he also wanted to add something.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to this. You know, when the pandemic had hit last year, in February, March, you know, there's a lot of fear going around and panic. But one of the things that it has taught me as a creative is that the world is smaller than you think, because while we were flying to places physically before and engaging in different projects and performances and stuff, it has really taught us how to use the virtual space to get things done, to really accomplish what we want. I mean, Peter put on the December Women Roses Water virtually and brought other dancers together from different parts, you know, all in one production. So I just use this to say that, you know, the diaspora can be so connected very closely, more than we think, without us even having to jump on a plane or to jump in a car. And we're all here together tonight, you know, in testimonial to our process and to our contributions. So, you know, it's very it's a rewarding experience. So yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And again, I'm sure we're all excited to continue working with you. As we saw earlier, those beautiful paintings in that video, just kind of marrying, like you mentioned, that art and dance together was just phenomenal. So I can't wait to see what else we produce in the coming season. So I believe
Zaylan?
Yes.
Could I just say something Michael Elliott said earlier on that just jumped out at me after I looked at the piece that he did, that he presented with the dancers against his backdrop. And he said, Mr. Yearwood asked him a question with regards to his art and his presentation. And he said, let the movement in your brush, in your brush strokes come to life. Let him make that connection. And I thought that was just so profound, because he came back and he spoke about this virtual space. And the movement, the energy is not the same as live energy, physical energy, with us being in the same room. But the vibrations are so powerful among us that it transcends the space that we're in, and we're actually still able to reach each other. We're able, and I'm going into the camera like that deliberately, reach each other and feel each other's space, and take that energy and move forward, you know, from this space. I want to remind Miss Yvette Belle that last year, the Trinidad and Tobago Independence Ball Committee did a virtual event, a 5-day virtual event. And we took the different aspects, food and film production and live performance and even worship, and then a conversation. And we did that over 5 days. So the virtual space has helped us to transcend the physical space on some level. But now we know that we can actually marry the two, so that those who don't have actual the ability to reach out and make that physical connection, that we can still transcend that physical space and be connected to each other. So I want to thank you all for this platform. It is marvelous.
Thank you so much, Gillian. And thank you for, once again, being such a spokesperson. I even saw you putting all the comments from Facebook in the chat over here. So I wanted to go to the last question that we had from Ms. Ulysses Eason, where she asked, do you have any plans of working with the inner city children again? I believe that's directed to Mr. London.
Oh yes, there's always, you know, more work for me to do. So I only get 2 hours of sleep a night. So there's always work. And so yeah, that's gonna happen, because that was a plan I had. I bought, because I was doing the plan was to do Black men stories, and then I'll bring the young boys to work with the men in Black men stories. And then the next year we were going to do the woman roses water and then have the young girls come and work with the women and be mentors. But then the pandemic hit and I couldn't bring those young girls into the space because that would have been too risky. But that hasn't gone away. So when things get back together and we can bring the young kids in, that's going to happen. So that hasn't gone anywhere. It's still part of the plan. And then eventually we'll bring the men and the women, the young boys and the young girls together for a full performance of a big event with everybody together. So it's a 3-part series.
I love it. So with that being said, plenty of things to look out for, plenty of things to be excited for, and we're back like we never left. The pandemic didn't stop us. We're still going strong. So
that's right.
Please
we never stopped rehearsing and we never stopped choreographing, and we couldn't perform, so we filmed it and spread it, and more people get to see it because we filmed it. So
right.
So we just kept going as our ancestors just kept going. You know.
Yes, sir. And please make sure if you go to our Connect page on our website, you can see all of our social media platforms, such as our YouTube channel, where you can go and see some of these amazing performances that you've seen tonight as well, see little excerpts of them. So I know that we went way over our time, but again, I just want to say thank you to everyone for the words of wisdom that you've all given, your energy, and just your stories that you've shared throughout the night. They've been truly impactful. To all of our attendees for joining us and sticking with us on both Facebook and our attendees here on Zoom. So again, we'll be doing this very soon. Make sure you stay connected with us, and you all have a great and amazing night.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette, Cleve, Vitolio.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
John.
I really enjoyed myself.
And I love the hat. I was having a ball with it. So you know I'm coming to you for costume, right? For the program. Plus, you heard the Christmas dinner, right?
I
heard. So you know I need your hands for that.
She's a fantastic dressmaker. She's awesome.
Right, I know.
Bye.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.